And
Hey,
we're live!
Yay!
Yay! Woo.
Yes,
Hi.
back
Ooh.
again.
After like 3 years.
It was 2.
Okay. Woo.
Woo!
Oh. So, sorry, I had it playing and I was like really confused for a second. I heard Molly in the background.
Oh.
Like, what?
Messing it up once again.
So I'm Bridget. This is my channel. Welcome. I'm B-Books. And we just read Turtles All the Way Down. I'm currently doing BookTube Rewind. So that's what's going on with me. I enjoyed it. Are we saying our thoughts right now?
Yeah, say your initial thoughts.
Okay. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed the writing. I think this is probably one of my favorite John Green books because it was like really captivating. And while there were like some cliche like John Green things in it, I felt
John Green has invented his own genre.
True. But I felt like this was like really unique and you could really see that he put a lot of himself into it. And I felt like that was really powerful and really good.
Yeah, I mean, this was probably my favorite John Green book that I've read.
You are, Peter. Say
Oh, yes, I am Peter. I haven't posted a YouTube video in a very long time, but I'm in some of Bridget's videos, so you can find me there.
And he's in Ravenclaw Rules.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is probably my favorite John Green book. It's really, you know, I would agree with Bridget that it does have some of his typical stuff in it, but
she meets a guy who gives him $50,000. That just happens a lot.
I wish that would happen to me, God. Like,
yeah, right. But it was very. I mean, you know, I can say from experience, you know, because Asa has OCD. I don't have OCD, but I have social anxiety, and there was a lot of stuff that I recognized in this, like a lot of the thought spirals and a lot of things that she talks about is very similar. So yeah, and I'm sure he was writing from experience. It's very real, you know, and I like that it's sort of presenting it in a way that it creates a really interesting story, but also shows a realistic view, you know.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm Sam. I have a channel that does stuff sometimes.
What is the channel?
It's Empty Ink Pots.
Okay.
It's down there probably.
Yeah, I'll put it in afterwards.
I don't know if I would say it's my favorite John Green book so far, but
What is your favorite?
I don't know. Probably Fault in Our Stars. It's like the one that has aged the best for me. Yeah, and
I'm just
I've
kidding.
read like
I've heard of it.
What is that?
we don't talk about that.
I'm talking about Fight Club, outside Fight Club.
I read like the last 2/3 of this book today, and it was like a really easy binge read. Even though it does have a lot of cliches, like I agree, like it does a really good job like breaking out and doing something that feels new for John Green. I like the voice of Asa, and I thought, like, even though the story is a lot about her OCD disorder, it also doesn't really define her by that, and he makes a really good effort to like give her different dimensions and just make her feel like a real person struggling with. Yeah. Can we put this down now?
Yeah. Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Molly from Magical Molly. This was definitely my favorite John Green. I was afraid it wouldn't hold up because I am the oldest person here, and I first read John Green when I like was all y'all's age, and so, you know, the way he writes is very like it's very targeted at like, you know, teen girls, and so the first thing I ever read by him was Looking for Alaska, and I like Sam. I liked Tifio so much because I feel like it was the first time he didn't write a manic pixie dream girl story. But this was my favorite because it was so character driven. Whereas I do feel like a lot of his books, like Tifio's, like so much of the characters was defined by the fact that they had cancer and they were dying. And this one, I feel like I've seen a lot of people on BookTube be like, oh, the plot was like, and I'm like, but that was the point. The plot was to like showcase these characters. I really, really connected to Aza. I was telling Bridget about how like people would basically get annoyed at Aza, like her mental illness was an inconvenience. Like I was saying before we went live, like people do that to me all the time. They're like, because I have major depressive disorder. So while I don't have the exact like cleanliness obsessions and like thought-based spirals as her, I still like spiral. And, you know, the way where she's like so in her head and then everyone takes that as being selfish. And what I really liked most about this book is I really hate mental illness narratives where they're like, but you can get better. And like by the end of it, the character has like somehow surmounted what is an incurable disease. And I liked that in this book, Aza was like, I am not normal. I will never be fixed. Like this is my life and there's nothing wrong with that. Because it's so often, especially in YA, even if it's written by an author who has that mental illness, it's like you can tell that author so much wants to be like cured. Yeah. And it's like, you know, I always say if you were born with a physical, you know, disability that was incurable, no one would be like, well, if you would just buck up, kid, you know, one day you won't have cerebral palsy. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have it. Or like, you know, if you people who are born without limbs, no one's going to be like, oh, just try harder. You'll have a limb. Like, and so, you know, mental illnesses are incurable diseases. And I liked that she was just really real with herself in the book and that it started where she was already real with herself. The only thing I didn't really like, and I mean, is it did have this trope that I hate in mental illness recs where the character doesn't want to take medicine. Which I guess like she is in high school and I was kind of like weird about taking my medicine in high school because when you're first presented with medicine, that's weird. But since she had said she'd been in therapy for years, it felt weird to me that she was still like, I don't want to take a pill to become myself. But it was like, you should be past that. Like, but yeah, I really loved it. It was my favorite John Green. I'm, you know, I used to bitch that he was taking so long to write a new book. But I really liked it, and I know
it was worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, I know he has OCD, and so this is his own voices, and it's actually just also like it gives me so much more respect for John Green too, that he's able to just do everything he does, knowing that like this is his head. And also, my last thought, I've told Bridget this, my father has OCD, and so while it's not like obviously the same as Aza's, nobody's is the same as someone else's exactly, it still like made a lot of sense to me. And I felt like I was like in my dad's head because there are parts of my dad that I don't get. And so like I said to my dad that he doesn't like really like fiction that much, but I was like, Dad, this is a book about someone with OCD. And he immediately was like, really? Because like, I mean, he grew up in a time when like mental illness didn't even like exist in the mainstream. And so I was like, yeah, you should read it. And I was like, you can't use my copy because it's first signed edition, but like, I'll get you a copy. Peter and I got the first signed editions. But yeah, so I loved it. I know I talk more than everyone else.
That's right. Yeah, and I mean, my sister also has it. So
yeah,
it was really, it was interesting.
It was very insightful.
She hasn't read it yet, but she's been wanting to.
It's honestly like, and like my therapist, I was reading another book where a character had bipolar disorder. And I said to her that I liked it because the author had bipolar disorder and like presented it in a very real, like, of course, this isn't a curable thing. And she said, yeah, have you read Turtles All the Way Down? And my therapist was literally like I have a lot of patients with OCD and like that book just does such a great job. It's so like literally even like, you know, like, and I looked it up, like lots of medical professionals actually like recommend this book. Like Peter said, even though like, yeah, like we all don't have OCD, if you have any kind of mental disorder, there are like crossovers with other mental disorders. And so, yeah, the thoughts spiral, you know.
Yeah.
So.
You guys want to give like a solid rating number?
Yeah. I rate my stuff on letter scales now. So I gave it an A+. It was like 100. It was great for me.
I gave it 5 stars. This was my first 5-star book of 2017, so that was very exciting.
All right. Since you guys did those, I'll do out of 10. I'll give it like a 9. There were some things that I wasn't super crazy about, but it was pretty close, you know. So yeah.
I'd say like 4.5 stars, just because like.
I thought you were going to go with a different method of rating. I mean,
I'm sorry.
What else was he going to do?
I don't know.
How many sheep would you give it?
Yeah, how many sheep would you give it?
Out of
Like, if you were selling it.
Oh, you could do percent. You could do percent.
Oh yeah, 2%.
I give it like a 92%.
All right.
Nice.
Cool.
It checked like a lot of the boxes for me, which
Yeah.
This book got an A+, 5-star, 92%. What did Peter do?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. It's pretty good.
And several sheep.
Pretty solid,
Several
yeah.
sheep.
Nice. So, do we want to talk about characters now?
Yeah.
there weren't that many. John Green, like,
Yeah.
I
He
feel
likes
like
focusing on certain people.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, you go. I was just commenting.
You go, Sam. Talk.
Um,
I'm sorry. It's like talk.
something it does really well, like he'll spend his books like concentrating really hard on a few characters, and I really like the effect on that in this because I feel like if there had been more, it wouldn't have felt so necessary. But like the relationship of Daisy and Davis and her mom to Asa, they all felt very important and like very invested in, which was good.
Peter, what do you think? Sorry.
Okay, I thought you were gonna, but yeah, I mean, a lot of they did feel very very fleshed out. You know, I tried rereading this because I read it like a while ago, but I couldn't finish it in time. So there are a few things that I don't really remember from it, but yeah, I mean, I feel like the most, I guess, fleshed out character aside from Asa would be Daisy, who I both like really liked and couldn't stand at the same time. You know, and I think we like, I feel like a lot of the characters had elements of like people who like we all know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so that was very interesting. But yeah.
I couldn't stand Daisy.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little unrealistic how quickly Daisy did like a 180 in the end. And I know Daisy, you know, accuses Asa of being selfish, but I honestly found it much more selfish that Daisy had been friends with this person for so long and never bothered to try and even begin to understand her friend's illness.
Right.
And I had a best friend like that who, and you know, and so I know what it feels like for someone to act like your mental illness is this inconvenience and mistakes being stuck in your head for selfishness. And it's like, to me, Daisy was just like so ignorant that it drove me insane.
Yeah.
And I felt like the mom was so ignorant. I think that was the point, is more
Right.
often than not, if you're mentally ill, you're going to be surrounded by like ignorant people. And it wasn't, I mean, and the thing was, Asa, you know, again, was at a point in her life where she'd been to therapy. She was aware she had this. It was like a lot of mental illness books start when the character's like just learning that they're crazy, and she was aware. And, you know, there would be scenes where she would just say to her mom or her friend, be like, this is what I need. Like, you can't ask this. It's not going to work. And then people, they would get annoyed at her that, like, didn't fit into their box of what a person is. And, like, again, that's something I've experienced. So I, like, really connected with those parts of the story, because I'll say to people, like, they'll be like, well, what do you want? And I'll tell them. And then they're like, oh, nothing I do is good enough. And it's like, I just told you. And so, like, the scene where Daisy, they were in the car going to the bank, and Daisy was like, does anything even make you feel better? I'm like, where in your brain was that the thing to say? Like, I always say, like, if the person had like cancer or like diabetes or something, you would never like be annoyed that like, oh, you have to go to chemotherapy. God, like, it's all about you. Like, and so, yeah. I really hated Daisy. I was annoyed for Asa. Like, I guess I just hated the part of her brain that argued with her. And like, I just felt so bad that like it was because of that she couldn't be with Davis. And I felt a little, and again, and Davis, I think, was another example of like, he came pretty close to understanding, but still wasn't willing to, excuse me, to like put in the extra work it takes to be with someone who's mentally ill. And I guess, it was nice in the end that Daisy, like, someone was still with her in the end. Because I was starting to think like, oh my God, is everyone going to leave? That's so depressing.
Yeah, I kind of had the same ideas as Peter. Like, I had liked Daisy, but also there were parts for that it was just like, why? Like, when they were like in the car and she's like, well, like you're just like a terrible person. I'm like, how is that gonna help anything?
I think that kind of was the point, because I think he wanted to create a character who wasn't just a like completely awful person, like mostly bad, but not completely awful, so that you could see, like you could kind of see it from her point of view.
Yeah,
you know, where this friend was like just, you know, a normal person who.
You can definitely see how Daisy felt. And I talked to Brim when we first started reading it. I mean, Daisy's just a very resentful person, and resentful people exist. And one thing I actually hated about her more than even her refusal to understand her friend's mental illness was the anger she had that Daisy's family, that Aza's family had more money than her family. I hate that game of like who has more money, because I told Bridget, I said growing up I had a childhood best friend who was very wealthy, like they had private jets and like several homes, and I was never like fuck you, Sarah, your problems don't matter because you're rich. Like, but it felt like that's what Daisy would do, is she'd be like, well, you don't, you know,
you don't understand me, you have money.
Like when Daisy bought the new car and the computer, like, you know, that was stupid. They told them not to do that because it's like it's a slippery slope to spend all that money. And then she's like, well, you already had a car and a computer. And it's like, that's not the point, is you're not handling the money like a responsible adult. And she didn't even have to give you that money in the first place. And then everything was because of the money. Like she was like, well, why do you even want to care about Davis and Noah now that we have the money? And it's like, wow, you're real. Like she was the self-centered person. So she like projected that onto Aza, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I told myself I wasn't going to talk this much. Here we are.
Yeah, I agree. There were good parts to her. Like I liked their friendship in the beginning. I thought that was really good. And I thought it was interesting to see how like when she got into a relationship with Michael, then that kind of just took over her life, and it was like, oh yeah, I don't have a best friend.
Yeah, there's always.
And then after that, she was like, well, why aren't you hanging out with me? And I'm like, because you haven't been giving her the opportunity.
Well, and even when she got like annoyed on her for walking in on her, and it's like, that's not your house. Like,
yeah.
I honestly found their friendship in the beginning a very tropey YA friendship, because I always notice in YA, it's always like the main character is very quiet or like average in some way. Like, I'm this shy girl, I'm the Bella Swan that no one notices, and then they have like this exuberant, like fun best friend, and like you almost never see that exuberant person be the main character, because
I think that bothered me more.
Yeah, that's what bothered
me. She was really exuberant. Like I couldn't stand it from the second she first started talking.
Because I think I'm a very exuberant, loud person, and like I definitely.
No, what would make you say that?
But like I am that friend, but I wouldn't. But like. I'm not.
You'd never be the main character.
I'm not perfectly scripted like that. Like, and like my best friend in real life, Kat, is also like very loud and stuff. And like, no one talks like that. No one acts that way. She was like the Augustus Waters of this book. She was the person who talked, and just like, just I don't know, like just her sentences would be so weirdly strung together.
I mean, some people do. We just don't like to talk about them.
I mean, but it was just like, yeah, it was, I felt like in the beginning, like, I think their relationship became more realistic as the book went. But in the first few chapters, I was like, oh, this is a real, like, YA style friendship with the two girls, where it's like, one's shy and the other one takes care of the shy one. And it's like,
yeah.
I feel like that was kind of like something he was trying to do too, like present this, I don't want to say ideal, but just like what you'd expect to see.
Yeah.
In a book. And then like, as you go on, actually textualize everything that's wrong with the friendship and everything that they're not like dealing with and acknowledging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there's always some other things going on that like you don't really want to talk about, but they're there. And I thought that was really good that like they finally like brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Jess. We have Jess, Peachy.
Awesome.
Right. Watching.
Where
Welcome.
do you put that?
If you go to the, well, I just have the live stream open and then in the chat. Yeah.
Let's see.
If you have any questions, don't be shy.
Yeah, and you remembered it because I.
Yeah. I thought that it was good that it was so character driven because I feel like that way we got to really know the characters versus if it was like the plot driving it then.
Well, yeah, because the plot's kind of like.
Because there is no plot.
It's kind of silly. Let's be honest.
I mean, I think the point was to put them in such a silly plot.
Right.
I think that was an executive choice, was to make the plot so goofy that it then provided like the situational comedic relief to like how devastating everything else
well,
was.
I'm not sure about this, but I feel like I heard at one point that the earliest version of Turtles All the Way Down was supposed to be like a kind of mystery or something, and then it like totally evolved over the course of his writing it.
And so like,
I don't actually know that for a fact, though. I could be wrong.
I could see that though, like the way it's written, because that's still how they advertise it on the inside.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been, he wrote it as a mystery. It's like, well, this sucks. So then, he added.
They were like, so that's not working for you. They were like, we're going to go back to that, like, really angsty YA shit you do. I felt like, I just want to talk about this because I've been thinking about it all day. When she started eating hand sanitizer, oh my God. Like, I was like, the first time she's like, and then she just put some in her mouth and then she just kept eating it. I was like, holy, I kept waiting for them to say like her liver problem was because, not because of the car accident, but because she kept fucking eating hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
That would
stress me out so much.
That would freak me out if I'm just like in the hospital, my kid's just like shoveling hand sanitizer into the
and then she just throws up and it's like,
yeah, because you're eating hand sanitizer.
I know.
Yeah.
That was wild. That's where it was like, man, that was.
That's where it got like real. Yeah.
And a part of me was like, did John Green ever do this? Like,
and there was like the part like when they're in the
people
hospital.
Have done stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, that's what made me think like, God, John Green, what did you have to go through? Like, I'm so sorry.
And there was the part in the hospital when like she's eating like the hand sanitizer, and then the mom, like her mom is like there and she's like, Oz, what are you doing? And then she just keeps eating it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so
stop herself. I mean, just the thing with her finger grossed me out that she kept like that grossed me out. The fact that like that made her feel sanitary to just for her entire life. She had this wound that she opened up on her hand. And then like, and Jesus Christ, you don't put hand sanitizer on an open wound like that either. You get like hydrogen peroxide or something. Like the first scene where they described her doing that, I was like, oh my God. I was like, that is horrible. Like,
yeah, see, that's where I read it and I was like, okay, yeah, this is gonna be good,
Yeah, well, I mean, and it made me mad too. Like I felt like her therapist and her mom, like, and her friend weren't trying enough because I honestly I don't think you should have just let this child do that their whole life because she.
Yeah, and I mean, well, and that's another thing is that a lot of,
she was a kid because Davis.
Yeah, I mean, luckily
that.
some people are fortunate enough to have parents who get it, and if they don't get it, they're at least they try to be perceptive and stuff. But sometimes parents and therapists just don't.
Yeah.
Don't get it, and they don't. I don't want to say not take it seriously enough, but they don't really understand
it doesn't fit the box of what a person is. So they don't want to try to. I mean, and her therapist was like such crap until the end. It was like it took the therapist a wake up call to like actively care about this person, and I'm like, and that literally the fact that anyone let that Band-Aid thing go on, that she had been doing that since she was like, what, 11? And this book picks up.
And it was like, oh yeah, you're doing fine.
They're like, oh, did you check the Band-Aid today? I'm like, I can't believe anyone has let this go on. Like,
yeah, and I can tell you, my sister's a clinical psych major. She's doing pre-med. And she's told me that, like, based on what she's told me, I can tell you that's probably like not okay to just kind of allow that to happen. Like, that doesn't really sound ethical.
No, I don't think I mean, honestly, to me, it just, from experience, it felt kind of like an OCD version of being a cutter.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you get the as she likes to put it, invasive thoughts.
Yeah.
And then it causes you to have compulsions in order to get rid of those thoughts,
Yeah. Well, that's why, and that's what made me think of, because that's why people cut themselves is because you think this is the only way I'll get rid of the pain and I'll feel at peace. And I mean, and she was hurting herself. Like, it was just a weird way of doing it. I mean, I guess like that's to say weird. Like, it was just something I hadn't seen before, because you always do see like,
yeah, I mean,
as the narrative, or like burning, or like making yourself vomit, but that was a very specific thing.
Well, that's the thing, that people, you know, very often don't realize how broad OCD is, you know, because it's very often just portrayed as, you know, being germophobic, when it could be about,
just, you know, like obsessively doing little things.
It could be how you schedule your time. It could be about counting the amount of red cars you see on the road, you know.
Well, and her obsession with like, what is a self, you know, like.
Right. Yeah. It's about just getting stuck.
I was like, oh my God, calm down. I was like, you're you, it's fine. Like, that was what really baffled me, was that everyone in her life who was supposed to take care of her basically let her mutilate herself and they knew she was doing it. Like, it wasn't
they really tried to like help her. It seemed like they were just kind of like,
because to me I was like I don't know if they knew to the extent that she was doing that with the Band-Aid, but like they knew it was a Band-Aid over a callet. I mean, like, they knew that she was mutilating herself. And it blew my mind that no one bothered to stop her. Like, they were just like trying to like help her deal with her self-mutilation a little bit better. It's like, no, help her stop mutilating herself. Like,
well, something that I don't remember exactly from the first time I read it, but when I was rereading it, I saw this part where, you know, her mom says, you don't really talk to your mother that much. And I don't remember that really being a present enough thing.
Yeah.
You know, but I feel like that was kind of in there to be like, you know, you should talk to me. But then it's like,
why don't you start the conversations?
Yeah, why don't, you know? But yeah.
Yeah, but also I felt like it would be difficult for her to start a conversation. Like, I know, like, obviously she should be trying to help her daughter and everything. But
the thing is, when
she just doesn't understand.
When the daughter is the one who's having the problem, the daughter isn't necessarily going to be the best one to speak up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, and especially at that age, like, I mean,
also she's a teenager, so she's probably
16, like, where this
don't talk to me.
I mean, yeah, she's 16, and like, I know from experience, like, even now, I have people in my life who don't want to understand what's going on with my head because it's like too much work for them, and like, I try to like voice what's going on, but like, you know, one thing I really thought about this book that was so real to mental illness is when you're mentally ill, I feel like, I don't know if like you feel this way, Peter, but it's like you feel like you're constantly having to like explain how you feel with like elaborate analogies that'll somehow like make it make sense to someone else. And no matter what you do, it's not the right analogy. And then the other person feels all sad for you. So then you feel guilty. And it's like,
well, I mean,
viral.
Yeah, and I mean, and Bridget knows this, but in 7th grade, my guidance counselor didn't think I actually had anxiety because since it was social anxiety, I didn't feel okay talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, so she was like, I don't think he actually has anxiety. I think he's just kind of like manipulative.
Yeah, I get told I'm manipulative all the time. Like, because I still, as an
like,
adult,
this was a professional saying that.
Yeah, I've actually been like so like conditioned by other people to feel guilty about my feelings that like when I talk to my therapist, I literally constantly like, I'm like, I mean, like, I don't know if I'm presenting this in a non-biased way, and I'm like not trying to sound selfish, and my therapist is like, you're like you don't sound selfish or biased, like you're allowed to feel things. But it's like I was treated like, once it came into knowledge like that I was officially, I mean, and I was in a hospital in high school, and even professionals in the hospital would basically try to make us feel bad that we were suicidal. It was that whole like suicidal people are selfish thing. And I still get that now as an adult. Like, everyone's like, oh, if you have a bad thought, like, tell us. And so then I have a bad thought. I'm like, hey, you're in your 20s. Tell somebody. And then they're like, oh, my God, you're, like, trying to manipulate me because nothing I do is good enough or whatever. And it's like, oh, my God. And it's like mentally ill people can't win. And I so felt in Aza's head. And the scene that just was, like, devastating me was that scene in the car. But, like, when Daisy starts going, like, do you even know if I have any pets? And then, like, Asa's just like, you have a cat. This is the cat's name. And it's like she's trying so hard. And it's like,
I thought you were saying her mom's name.
No, she said you have a cat, and then I don't know.
No, but she also said you don't know my parents' names.
Yeah, but like basically that she was proving it wrong, and it was like she was trying so hard, and it wasn't good enough for anybody, and it was. Yeah. I mean, and even in the end, it wasn't good enough for anybody, and that sucks. Like, but that's what felt really real about it is most of the time, if you're mentally ill in this generation, like you're not going to be good enough for most people because most people don't want to have to unpack that and deal with it.
Yeah, well, and I mean, one thing I like is that, you know, this is John Green. This isn't some unknown author writing about mental illness. This is like a really well-known young adult fiction writer who's writing a book about such a topic that people don't understand. So they're getting a lot of people reading it.
Yeah, and it's good.
And so
it helps them understand.
I mean, and so there are a lot of people who don't mean anything bad by it. They just don't really get it. So they perceive it as, being selfish and things like that.
Yeah.
When it's just kind of being stuck in your own head.
Yeah, I think mentally ill people across the spectrum of up until like when you get to like really severe personality disorders, but like from what I've read of own voices from like bipolar disorder to what I have, MDD, to social anxiety, to OCD, is you're always perceived as either manipulative or selfish. And it's like you're trying so hard to not come off in a negative sense. And then you're trying so hard to come off as normal. And it's just like, I liked this book because it showed that like the world is really rooted against, like it wasn't but it wasn't like an over dramatization. Like it was, the world really was against Aza, and no matter what she did, it wasn't good enough for anyone. And that's why I really liked in the end, she was like talking to the part of herself that like hates herself and was like, you don't understand. You're going to grow up and you're going to have a life and you're going to have kids and you're going to love those kids no matter what. And basically saying like, even though everything sucks, you're still going to keep living. Like you're still going to have a life regardless of how other people treat you for what you can't change. And I liked that she said, I really loved the line where she said, but I can never slay the dragon because the dragon isn't in me. I'm the dragon. And I was like, exactly. It's like everyone's always
that was
mentally ill have demons. And it's like, no, you are the demon. Like you are sick and you can't fix it. And it's like, I loved this narrative so much because I literally can't think of any other young adult narrative about mental illness where there wasn't some kind of essence of like, but if we could only fix it. And it's like,
because
well, you can't.
Like, the thing is, anyone who has been born with a condition, they only know that condition, so there are times when where I feel like, oh, I'm really weird when it comes to this thing. And then it occurs to me, wait, no, that's just my anxiety. But I wouldn't know the difference because that's just kind of how I've been all my life.
Yeah. Like major depressive disorder means that you always exist in a state of sadness and you can't experience the state of happiness. Like you can enjoy things and have fun, but you never, like, I don't know what like pure happiness feels like, but to me, I'm just like, but that's how I am. Like I'm a person who's naturally sad and angry and I can still live my life and enjoy things. But it took me a long time to be like, oh, but that's just me. That's just how I am. Because, people, again, who aren't mentally ill will always go like, oh, you're not your mental illness. And how Aza kept saying that, how people will be like, oh, you're not your thoughts. And she was like, then what the hell am I if I'm not my thoughts?
Yeah.
And like that would fuck with anyone. Like if someone said to me like, oh, you're not your thoughts, I'd be like, well, then what is this, the Matrix? What are my thoughts? Like,
then who am I?
I felt like that was probably the worst thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, say that to someone who doesn't even have a mental illness. You aren't your thoughts. Then what are they?
That's a really weird thing to say.
Just because they're thinking about different things that might not be as, grave to them doesn't mean that they're more disconnected from them.
Yeah. My therapist said something that I really liked that like I wished Aza's therapist in this book would have said to her. She said, people say that a lot, like therapists say that a lot, like, oh, you're not your mental illness. And my therapist said to me, she said, your mental illness doesn't define you, she said, but it is a core part of you.
Right.
And she said, instead of learning to conquer it, you need to learn to live alongside it.
And that's what she was saying at the end of the book.
Yeah, and
I know. That's why this book was so good to me, because it was the first time a YA narrative was like, it's okay to be sick. Like,
right. And I mean, and that's what a good therapist says. find ways to live with it rather than,
me,
oh,
like,
you're
10
going to
therapists
eradicate
to find
this
this woman,
completely.
so, you know, hopefully
Sorry?
Asa has hope. Asa will find. So it took me a long time.
Yeah,
When I
right.
was 16, I did not have a therapist this woke. Like, yeah, this book, I know I've just been talking. I feel like Peter and I are just like, okay, mental illness talk time. Let's go.
PSA, right?
My sister's
like, yeah.
My sister's texting me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm in group therapy that we're just broadcasting live.
Yeah.
So like we covered the whole hand sanitizer thing. Was there anything? Do you guys want to talk about the relationship between her and Davis?
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
I like that it wasn't the driving force, because this is like the first book of his where it wasn't like romance. Like,
That drives me crazy when romance is the driving force.
unless you're
Unless it's
writing
like
a romance book,
novel.
like unless you're Colleen Hoover, like,
Right.
like,
and I thought it was good.
That's what I came for.
I thought it was good at the beginning how like they were going to get like he was like, okay, here, take the $50,000, like, and then
That was
like,
so wild to me. I was like,
I know,
gonna take it. I was like, there's no way.
I know, but it was good that she got it, and then like he was like, okay, now I'll know like if you want to still like hang out and stuff, then like it's true, versus like for money.
And he wasn't a dick for thinking that, because initially they didn't want to hang out with him. They were just trying to get the money. Like, like to be fair, like it was kind of just like along for the ride. But like to be fair, their reason for going there
was the money.
Like,
yeah, and
but
honestly,
then like
I don't think
they
he
like
was really being a dick at all. I think he was like really like screwed up by this, you know?
How could you not be? You know?
Yeah, I mean, like.
But I feel like he also like couldn't really show it.
Anything he said or did in this book that was kind of off, I think, was justified.
Yeah, but I also thought that like he couldn't really show it because obviously like he had to be there for his brother, and like because his brother was like there and like he didn't have anyone else other than him. It's like you can't really tell your brother like, oh hey, I'm like really freaking out about like our dad's gone. I don't know where he is.
Like, that's all of our money to a lizard. Like,
yeah, I mean,
oh my god,
we're gonna be poor now.
I mean, I really disliked Aza's mom, and I was so mad when she just yelled at Daisy. Because again, like her mom had that classist attitude that Daisy had, but like you always picture classist people only being rich people, but like middle class and poor people can be classist too. And the fact that her mom was like, "Oh, you think just because you're rich you're gonna get to date my daughter?" And it's like that's so rude to Aza too, that you assume that isn't like intelligent enough to make decisions for herself, like.
Yeah, I mean, she was very sort of stuck in her own, I guess, worldview, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't really, you know, when she said, "You don't talk to me," she thought that she just kind of assumed that, like, Aza would just talk to her. Yeah. You know, and she assumed that, you know, Davis, oh, he has money and he's just a jerk, you know.
Which are things like you can't just think that about someone, because you have to actually get to know them. And, like, with her daughter, it's her daughter. She has to take the initiative because she's like raising her. So she has to take the initiative and be like, hey, are you okay? Like, what's going on?
And she like must have known like everything that was happening to Davis in the past few weeks, and like that he must not be
like, oh, you just lost your dad. Well, you have money. So
like in a right state of mind, and like he would be.
Knew that his dad was gone, and I'm like, how fucking insensitive.
I mean, that's even worse than Daisy with the, well, you have money, so you don't have problems.
And I'm like, this is still a child you're talking to. Like,
yeah, it's a child who isn't going to have any of the money because it's going to the Tuatara.
I love to, well, it was really real what he said when he said, your mom's wrong, though. I can't have everything I want. And she said, what's something you want that you can't have? And he was like, a mother, for starters.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, just, that was one thing too. The one thing I wish we got more of in the book was Aza's dad, who had died.
I think the reason why he didn't include more of that was because he didn't want to blur the distinction between the problems she had from not having a father and the problems she had from having OCD.
Yeah, no, I just it was.
But yeah,
it felt very. It felt almost like the stuff they threw in should have just been excluded. Like, it should have just
right, because it did feel sort of thrown in. Yeah,
like it would be like the thing with the phone was weird. Like, and then in the car wreck, she's so. And I'm like, you should have like introduced that sooner. And
like, I had completely forgotten that it was in the trunk, so it didn't even cross my mind. So she was like,
just telling the scene about him dying felt very random, and they should have. I feel like it would have just been helpful if it was the way they treated Davis's character, where he was like, there was like, yeah, his mom's dead. Like,
yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, reading it, I sort of felt like, and I guess this is me as a writer thinking about the construction of it. It was probably like, oh, well, Davis can't have a mother because then his circumstances aren't as dire. And Asa having a father is really inconvenient for dialogue because then she needs to have two parents talking to her, so I'll kill the father.
Also, then she can't relate to Davis as much because then, like, she has two parents.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, I think if Davis had a mother, then, like, she might have brought some sense into the dad and been like, why are you leaving all your savings to a lizard? I am here with our children. We need...
Yeah, I feel like the only way the mother could have existed for Davis that would have made sense is if it was like a mom who had like abandoned him or something, or like divorced the dad, or the dad had married a mistress or something. Yeah, I felt like the way that like with David, they were like, oh yeah, his mom's dead. That's sad. And with Asa, they were like, yeah, her dad's dead. But I kept honest to God forgetting that she had a dead dad. Like, because they would be like, the day my dad died. And I'd be like, oh, that's right. Yes, of course. Like,
yeah.
It just didn't like, feel like a real part of the story.
Yeah, it felt like it felt like something from the rough draft that like needed to be cut or something.
Like, oh yeah, she had a dead dad.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, that's...
like, oh, where's her father? He died mowing the lawn. And it was like... what? And one thing too is like, you would think if her dad died of a heart condition, then that would have contributed to Asa's OCD, and then that's what she would be obsessed with. And they're like, I don't have OCD, so I can't know. But I'd feel like if someone in your, like, she was so afraid that she was gonna get C. diff, and I was like, but you're not afraid you're gonna die of a heart problem,
even though like someone related to you has.
Your dad died of a heart problem mowing the lawn.
Like, I even get panic attacks about that. And like, I don't know anyone who died of a heart condition.
Yeah.
So
I know so many people in my family who've died of heart conditions. Like, and yeah, and so that's why I was like, you know, if your dad that you were apparently so close to, even though we've seen next to no context of that. That's another thing too, is they kind of painted it like she liked her dad more than her mom, I guess. But like, we know nothing.
But then they didn't talk enough about the dad. Yeah.
We didn't know the dad's name. We didn't know what her relationship with him was like. Like, it was just like, I have a dad, he's dead, it sucks. Yeah, he died mowing the lawn. I talked to his phone for some weird, that was weird, too, that she just talked to his phone.
Like, I kind of get that in a sense, like, if
it wasn't done well enough, though.
If there are, like, well, like, the thing was, I don't think about the phone, but, like, if you have, like, voicemails on your phone of them talking, like, I understand that, but, like, if it's his phone, it's like,
And that felt weird, yeah. Like, I can honestly, she's like, oh, this used to be his phone, and it survived when he didn't. And I was like, it's like John Green had to keep reminding himself that that her dad was dead as he wrote it. Like, where's her dad? Oh, like, he's not here. That's right, of course. Like,
yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like, you know, my biggest complaint about this book was that it was trying to almost imitate having, like, a really, like, you know, masterfully woven plot. And it just didn't.
Yeah.
You know, he added in these elements and, like, you know, the mystery, and then when they figure out what happened, you know, but it was just sort of kind of placed in. You know, it didn't really. How it
could have been, like, what would you guys suggest? That, because I mean, like, the Davis and the money, because money was a big part of this book, and how would you guys like place it in then, the money, without? You know what I mean? Like, how could that have worked?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's.
I don't think they ever should have found the missing dad. I think that should have just been like an up in the air thing, because that was just weird. Like,
but also I feel like if he didn't resolve it, then people would have been like, well, then like what happened? It would have been.
I don't know. Like,
or if he like weaved it so that it was like it doesn't really matter what happens to him. Then, like,
instead they the jogger's mouth, and then they just were like, "Yep, we were randomly walking around in the sewer the other night for an art show because that's what high school kids in Indianapolis do." And
of course, I can speak for that.
That was another thing I thought was a bit weird. Is the book started out like with like a lot of like Indianapolis pride and like really trying to paint you like the culture and the landscape of where they lived. And then that fizzled away. They were like, and I forgot where they were. I forgot her house.
I forgot where they were too.
I forgot her house backed up to a river. I was like, until she was like, oh, we went out and sat down by the river. I'm like,
I forgot until they said what's her face? The girl we don't like.
Daisy.
Yeah, Daisy. Until Daisy was like, well, you know, they didn't want to settle on this river, but it's an okay town, and you're an okay person.
That's another thing too. Is in the beginning I was like, is Daisy like Latina? Because like the way that the names she used for like her dad and stuff sounded like, it sounds like, oh, is she a person of color? And I kind of wish like that had at least been acknowledged, because I don't think he ever described what anyone looked like except Davis.
He also kind of described Michael a little bit.
Yeah, Michael.
Like, was it thinking Beyonce had a like grown-up baby or something?
Yeah, but like I realized halfway through I think like Aza, he said what her hair color was in the first scene.
I don't even remember.
I don't know either.
I just pictured her looking like Melissa Benoit, because that's what came to my head first. So I was
I could see that.
I was like, okay, Supergirl's Aza. I was like, But yeah, like, well, and the thing is, I don't even ever remember him saying like Davis had glasses, and then like randomly she was like, oh, he pushed his glasses back to his nose. I'm like, he has glasses.
Mention it, but it wasn't very well mentioned.
That's what I mean. Is no one was described what anyone.
No, and I only know because I just reread it like today.
Yeah.
So.
I was like, what do you guys look like? Who are you people?
I was just like, I don't know, like. If I was gonna cast these people as actors,
like who would you pick?
I have no idea who I would cast.
Yeah.
I kept changing who I pictured Daisy as, because I was like, but wait, is she white? What is she? Like, and then I mean, was Aza even white? Like,
who knows?
I mean, I guess like maybe that was the point, but like that no one had a race, but like yeah, that was a little weird that like. Because I feel like in all his other books, like a lot of detail goes into whatever.
Yeah. Oh my god, so much detail describing.
Well, I mean, I feel like he probably put so much energy.
Maybe that's why. Sorry.
Into Aza and her describing OCD in a really clear way that he just sort of either overlooked all of the other aspects, or he was just burned out, you know.
Or if he was trying to make that point that like she doesn't really care what they look like.
Yeah, because she's so.
It didn't matter. She's so in her head.
I guess I think the book was so amazing because of Aza's character and the way people treat the mentally ill was done so well. But yeah, the plot needed to be. The energy that went into describing Aza and the way people treat Aza should have been more evenly dispersed into everything else. But I just really wanted to share this part that I read this to Bridget when I read it aloud that I just really loved.
Yeah.
Where she said, parts of a typical romantic relationship that make me anxious included 1, kissing, 2, having to say the right things to avoid hurt feelings, 3, saying more wrong things while trying to apologize, 4, being at a movie theater together and feeling obligated to hold hands even after your hands become sweaty and the sweat starts mixing together, and 5, the part where they say, what are you thinking about? And they want you to be like, I'm thinking about you, darling, but you're actually thinking about how cows literally could not survive if it weren't for the bacteria in their guts, and how that sort of means that cows do not exist as independent life forms, but that's not really something you can say out loud, so you're ultimately forced to choose between lying and seeming weird.
Right. No, yeah. One of my, if we're going to talk about favorite parts, I don't really know what my absolute favorite part is, but while I was rereading it, I decided to mark this. It's when they were at Applebee's with Davis and Michael, and they laughed because something was funny. I laughed because they had.
Oh yeah, that was.
And that's you know.
Yeah, that I felt that too. Yeah.
I love the like dialogue of the feeling of like being in a conversation and feel like you're just watching it on a movie screen and not actually like, there. Yeah.
There were a lot of Star Wars references in this. I didn't.
And then there was a Harry Potter reference, and I was like, yes.
Can we talk about how trash that was? That Daisy just wrote a hate character.
She's like,
I know.
This is how I deal with it.
And like not even
oh, well, you should have read my reading. And I'm like, I shouldn't have to ask. And I'm like, sure you should. I tell people, like, I'm like, hey, this is important to me. Can you check it out? And then they do. Like, you can't just expect her to know.
Oh, I did it, so you're going to have to look at it.
I mean, like, and honey, it's fan fiction. Calm down. Like you're writing Star Wars fan fiction, okay? Like, it's not changing the world.
Right.
But yeah, she was like,
Yeah.
I created her when we were in 7th grade. I'm like, oh my God, you've just been
That's
walking
terrible.
around with this resentment for your friend. Like, and I didn't like that Aza was like okay with it in the end. I was like, no, I had that happen once where someone wrote a story. I accidentally saw it. I wasn't even supposed to. This wasn't a public thing. That clearly favored one person in my family over me. And the names were like barely changed. Like a version of my middle name was used.
Wow.
And I confronted the person. They were like, how dare you like read that? Like, that's just how I deal with things. I'm like, well, that's not fucking okay. Like, that's not.
Yeah.
Like, was it online?
It wasn't online. It was like I was using this computer to print something, and they had left that tab open. And so I saw it, and I just started like reading through it because they had told me, they were like, oh, I'm like writing a story and I'm like really into it. And I'd read their stuff before, and I was like, oh my God. And it was just like all about like how my sister was better. And I was like, oh my God. And like it stays with me to this day. And it was one of those things where like I've never been okay with it that happened, because like as mad as I get at people, I would never like a poet I really like, Randa McGavin, said you should never be using your art as revenge. And so like even if I write a poem like about like an experience or something, I'm never like writing it and like creating like parts or like creating a character in a story that exists solely to like help me deal with someone who's annoying me in real life. And I wouldn't even I would never even think of doing that, is the thing.
Yeah, and I mean, if I ever base characters off of friends, even if it's like a friend that I might have who has aspects that I really get on my nerves, I will never use those aspects. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, that's just not something you do. It's
you
like
have to make them unique,
right? If I'm basing a character off of them, I'm not going to just make them into this sort of like way of almost like self therapy.
Well, yeah, people always that's
not,
like say about writers that like you're gonna show up in their story or something.
Yeah, no.
Like I've used like names, like when we were all doing NaNoWriMo, me, Peter, and Bridget, I told you guys like just to be funny to myself, like it was only funny to me.
Yeah.
I named the ex-girlfriend Catherine, which was the name of someone who's not in my life anymore. But this character, but I just used that name. It was a different spelling of the name, and it was just that character was in no way the actual person Catherine. It was just. And the character wasn't even a bad person. She was just like supposed to be she was just a funny, annoying ex-girlfriend. And so I gave her this name, but she wasn't supposed to be that person. And I didn't write her to like help me deal with like that person in my real life. Like I have never had like, even like the people in my life who like when I have issues with them, I'm never like, well, I'm going to go write a story and put it on Tumblr and just you wait. Like that's so insane. Like, and I thought that was so weird that I felt like Aza and Daisy's relationship did such a 180 because they were running out of pages to resolve things. And like the fact that she was like, oh, I'm actually starting to like Ayala or whatever. And then she was like, oh yeah, now I automatically understand your mental illness. And I'm like, no, that's not how 16-year-olds work.
Yeah. That was unrealistic.
That made me so mad when she realized like your best friend just called you useless. And
then she's just okay with it. It's like, oh, it's fine.
She's like, well, you should have like read the stuff sooner. And it's like, but
she still would have been writing about
what she's saying is, I called you useless. I just needed to say that. I'm okay now. I forgive you, so we can be friends.
Yeah, and it's like, actually, no, like, and that's like, I couldn't believe Daisy was forgiven. Like, I guess I get it because they're teenagers, but what I didn't think was realistic was when she was like, oh, I'm proud to say Daisy's still my friend, like as an adult. I'm like, no.
And I was like, why didn't you cut her out of your life?
You could have been like, and then Daisy and I moved on as adults, because that's also just weird that you would like stay best friends with someone you knew since you were like 12. Like that just doesn't really happen much in life, actually.
My sister's still friends with someone who she was friends with.
I know people from when I was a kid, but like never like someone who was like the cliche, like best girlfriend tied to my hip kind of thing. Like I didn't find that kind of relationship until I was an adult. But like books will always books and Disney Channel will have you think that like your perfect sidekick.
That's how it's supposed to be. Yeah.
It's gonna be like Hannah Montana, and they're gonna come bouncing out like, I'm here to just back you up. Like that's how the writing made it. Like
yeah. Like I wish.
That's why I was sad in high school and college. I was like, where is my Disney Channel best friend?
Yeah.
With me? I'm yet to see them. Like I felt like the makeup between her and Daisy was weird. One thing Daisy said that resonated with me is she said, you sure can hold a grudge against yourself, which I get accused of doing all the time. Is everyone's like, oh my God, like I'm over it. Stop saying you're sorry. And I'm like, but I just feel so bad. It's like,
yeah.
Like I definitely.
I thought that was kind of a changing point in their like relationship, because that was kind of why like Aza forgave her, because she felt so bad about herself, which that's a terrible thing to do. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I was mad at her for that, but
I wish like Daisy had come and been like, I deleted all the stories with Ayala or whatever or something.
But I mean, I don't think she would have done that, because I think she wrote her in like every story, and she had like thousands of like.
It's just so fucked up that she did that. Like, I don't think that should have been forgiven, because that's
and then everyone was like, "Oh, I hate her," and she's like, "Thanks."
Yeah, that's the thing too, is that like she had a following of fans who loved to hate the fictionalized version of her best friend. That she was like, I wrote her to cope with it.
And she was like, it's fine that they hate you.
When they got in that fight, it felt to me like Daisy wanted a reward for being Aza's friend, which again, I've experienced. It's like, I put up with like the sad person, so I need a gold star because no one else was willing to do it. And like, that's how it felt. Is it was like, well, Aza, nobody else likes you, so you should be thankful that you're in my Star Wars fan fiction. Like,
I think
that's so stupid.
Like I could maybe see conceivably how she would have forgiven her at some point, but the way how she did, it was way too easy.
Well, and then she was like, "Oh, and I've grown accustomed to Ayala," and I'm like, "No.
Yeah,
no.
You don't like. Maybe she started writing her better, but like.
No, I mean the right thing you do is you say, I stopped writing her because that was really wrong and screwed up.
Yeah, I don't feel like Daisy.
I understand if you don't want to talk to me for a while.
Daisy was like, "Yeah, I did it right. Like my thing was great." And
Daisy never even was like, "Yeah, that was wrong that I did that." She was like, "Oh, I should have killed her off years ago." I'm like, "No, you should have never made her." And that's your apology. Your apology should have been like, "Hey, sorry, I did this really fucked up thing. I'll write her. I'll phase her out." Also, let me just say too, if Kat, my real life best friend, started writing fan fiction. No, I wouldn't read it because I don't like fan fiction and I don't care. And if she came to me and said, it's really important to me that you read it, then I would. But I wouldn't just know. Like, my brother and I both have YouTubes and we're both subscribed to each other, but we don't watch each other's stuff because it doesn't interest us unless the other one is like, hey, I'm really excited about this and I really want to show you this. Like, we don't. Like that was so selfish too. She's like, you should just like know what matters to me without me having to tell you. Like.
Yeah, like if it really mattered to her, she would have said something and been like, "Hey,
I send Bridget my publications all the time. I don't just expect you to know." I'm like, just
I'm like, I don't know, but then like you send them, and I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, if you want to check out this poem, but like also, I wouldn't care if you didn't read them. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, my dad doesn't read the things I get published. I'm never like, oh, my father hates me. Like it's. And I'm like, you weren't even getting published. Like this was a like she was essentially on Tumblr and was like, why won't you read my fan log Star Wars? You don't even care about our friendship. And I'm like, we get it. You like Star Wars and you think Chewie is a human. Like we get it. Like I was like,
right. Yeah, I mean, if I were sending people my stuff to read,
which Peter
and they
never
said
does,
no,
so.
like if anything, I would be like, oh no, am I being too like,
yeah, it was just, well, and Aza said, like, I would have read them if you had told me it mattered to you that much. And she was like, well, I shouldn't have to. And I'm like, I hate that kind of person who's just like, you should know what I'm feeling without me having to tell you what I'm feeling thing. It's like, well, my Spidey senses aren't tingling and I didn't like magically know I had to do this. Like
this like fan fiction was like your life.
Yeah, I mean, also reevaluate your life. That's kind of sad. Like,
I think it goes back to like what we were talking about, how it's like this idealized version of a high school friendship. And I think maybe we were supposed to read it like Daisy wanted it to be like that. And she was just mad at Aza for not making that happen.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. She was like, oh my God, like I wrote this fantasy friendship in my head and you're not playing your part right. What's wrong with you?
But I mean, she is playing her part exactly how she wrote it. So
yeah.
If she wanted like a better friend, why didn't she like write her friend as like better or whatever? And then it was like, that's you.
If your friend in real life pisses you off that much, then don't be friends with her. Like no one. And that's
exactly. She was expecting like a reward.
Asa was like, no one made you be friends with me. Like,
yeah,
like,
I mean,
I'm here because I want to be here. What are you doing? Like,
right, and that's even better than living vicariously through your fictional counterpart.
Yeah.
Find people you actually like to hang out with and be like,
that was unbelievable to me that she was just like, I mean, and like to be like, and Asa went along with every stupid thing Daisy wanted to do. Daisy was like, we're gonna break onto this property and try to take this person's money, and like I'm gonna hook up with someone else in your almost boyfriend's house. I'm gonna force you to go on a double date, even though I know that's gonna make you so anxious and uncomfortable. That's the thing. She was like, I feel like Daisy would purposely put Asa in situations that like she knew we're gonna upset Asa.
Yeah.
Feel like, well, it's what I want to do. So
it's like, why don't you appreciate what I'm like helping you get out and do things that you don't want to do? Why aren't you appreciating me for that?
Yeah, like that's like there's things like my friend Kat, you've seen a lot of my videos, like she knows that there's just like certain things I don't want to do, and she's never like, no, but we're gonna do them anyway. Like, like that's so selfish. Like in real life, like my mom doesn't like going to the movies. Like going to the movies just like makes her anxious and stuff. So I'm never like, no, mom, we're going to the movies. Like, get over your problems. Like, and the whole book, I felt like Daisy was like, even up until the end, like you have a friend who you know has really germophobic, cleanliness-based thought spirals. They're like, okay, can you come to this art show in the fucking sewer with me?
Right.
Yeah. I was like, I can't believe Asa went either. I would have been like, no, fuck you, Daisy.
Even I would be grossed out by that.
I couldn't.
I don't have any germaphobe problems, and I'd still be like, ew, no. We're not doing that. Also, that felt like it came out of nowhere too. When she was like, "Hey, remember I told you about like Michael's photo?" And I was like, "I don't remember."
Me neither.
I was like, "Did you tell me, the reader? Because I've never heard of it."
I was like, "Michael's an artist? What?"
I felt like at the end, John Green made a mad dash to make Michael a real character.
Yeah.
They always said like their friend group too at the lunch table, and I was like, "Who?"
I was like, "What friend group?" Yeah. Like, was it just Michael sitting there by himself, like, awkward, like, oh, it's really bad?
Like, oh, we don't want to mess up the friend group. And I'm like, I'm yet to see any proof of this group. Are you all schizophrenic and have imagined friends that aren't there?
And they're all the same people.
That's the M. Night Shyamalan twist of the book, is like, everyone just existed in like a snow globe in Daisy's bedroom or something.
Yes.
Well, it's 8 o'clock. Do we want to wrap it up here?
Sure.
Do we have any last thoughts about the book?
And then we can share what we're reading next time.
Well, I do revise my statement from earlier. Daisy pretty much is completely awful.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
She comes across at first, like we said, like the tropey best friend, and you think at first that it's Asa who's being the difficult friend, but then you realize, oh, wait, no. It's Daisy who's being the difficult friend. Yeah, I think we covered everything. It was just, I recommend people read it because not only will I think it'll help people understand OCD, I think it'll also just understand what it feels like to live with a mental illness and people not understanding it. Mm. And I think it's a really important book. Like for all its like plot falls and like, you know, only Daisy and Asa were like fleshed out characters. You know, yeah, it's not a perfect book, but I still think it's his best book because it's just like the most real. You know, like it's his first book I think he wrote where I could actually see this happening because like.
And where there wasn't like a specific ending that was like, oh, it's all perfect. It's great.
Yeah, like Looking for Alaska would never happen. Like Abundance of Catherines would never happen. The Fault in Our Stars, I'm going to guess, would not happen. And this was the most like set in reality book. I felt like it was the book most devoid of a lot of the tropes he is so famous for using, which not that there's anything wrong with them, but like, you know, I was worried. It does
get old eventually.
I was worried when I got that. Originally, when I heard this was coming out, I didn't even care because I was like, I'm in my 20s. I don't need to read the same story about a boy and a girl who are like different and then they fall in love like all over again. And it's just, it felt really real. I had, like we discussed, we had issues with like the Daisy ending, but it was still, I also think we take it with a grain of salt. They're teenagers, you know?
Yeah.
Like if they were in their 20s or something, Asa would have had the nerve to be like, no, fuck you, Daisy. Like,
we're not friends anymore. I can go find someone else.
Yeah. Anyone else? I think Peter, any closing thoughts before I show our next book?
No, I don't think so.
Sam, anything?
I love how it used the word stands in like reference to Star Wars fan fiction viewers.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't understand, but I'll take your word for it.
Understand.
I didn't really
Sorry.
know. Yeah.
So our next book is for our book this month, March. Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor.
Yay!
So if you guys, now that we're back in action, Bookish Thoughts and Feelings back in action, if you want to join in for March, we're going to be reading Strange the Dreamer, and we don't know when the live show is yet, but
Yeah, we're not sure yet. But I'll announce it, and I'm sure Molly will announce it. And
yep.
Yeah.
And coming out tomorrow at 12 p.m. EST on this channel is BookTube Rewind.
Yay!
So real quick spiel, if anyone lives under a rock, BookTube Rewind is the brainchild of Bridget, made in response to the bullshit YouTube demonetization. It is like YouTube Rewind, but for BookTube. These two
All
guys,
the small creators.
also, it features over 100 booktubers, not including me and Bridget. Original like mixed composed music. And it's just, we've created a playlist too that has all the individual channel and videos that we used.
Yeah.
If you want to check out, it's just going to be like really great. All the teaser trailers are up on
both of our channels.
Yeah, and the original full teaser trailers on mine. And yeah, just check it out. Tweet it at YouTube so they.
Yeah, and if you watch it, then definitely like show us your reactions. Tell us what you thought.
Yeah, tweet it when you're watching it.
Yeah.
Share it with your friends.
Be like, oh my god, BookTube Rewind, and then just like show everyone you
It was
know.
the biggest event of 2018
I mean, I think so.
so far.
On
Forget the
BookTube.
Olympics.
There's the Olympics, and then there's BookTube Rewind.
What did I say in like the teaser trailer? I was like, so get ready for the social media event. You didn't ask for it. Aren't sure if you want, but we spent a lot of time making it.
That
We spent
trailer was
so much
brilliant.
time on it.
Thank you.
Especially when
That
it gets
was
to the
my
black
idea.
and white pictures of you guys. Like
Yeah.
that's when I lost it. It was
That
great.
was my idea. I said to Bridget, I said, you want to release a trailer? And she said, well, yeah, but I don't know if I'd have the clips done by then. I said, no, like let's release a trailer and like, and then the little like promo videos are my idea. And so that's my my favorite is the promo I released today of all the people reading.
Yeah.
That's 90%.
And
Emma
like,
Watson.
yeah, all of them are Emma Watson.
There's a few other people in there, but like Emma
Just like
Watson.
a few.
I said to Bridget last night, I said, if I remember correctly, in history class, we learned that Emma Watson invented the book. And Bridget was like, yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, yeah, Emma Watson invented books. I don't know if y'all knew. But
Well, apparently the trailers we posted said February 17th. What? Did they?
one of them might have.
Oh, sorry. It's
Well-
tomorrow. We have a countdown. It's
Yeah.
if you go to our trailers, like the compilation, then there's a countdown in the description.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I think one of them I might have messed up and said 17th on them.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, it's probably the Alice in Wonderland one or the. Yeah, I don't know. That would probably be the only one because I think that's really the only one where I like put the date on it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's tomorrow. So
Well, tomorrow, guys, it's not that hard to figure out. I released one today where it said tomorrow. So, and we've said it on Twitter and Instagram like a lot. So it's tomorrow.
So get excited. And just like watch it like a bajillion times, and then yeah.
Yep.
It's good. I swear. I
It
think.
is. I've seen some of it. It's amazing.
Thank you.
The music's really good too. Like,
Oh my god, yeah. I've
It
showed
is.
the
I
music
heard
to some
the
people.
music.
did you like it?
I think it's great. I think it's
Thank
amazing.
you. Y'all couldn't tell by now I composed the music.
I want to know who did the music. I'm editing it, so
Bridget's editing it. I composed the music. We both worked on like collecting all the video clips, and then I did all the like promo teasers and photos and things like that.
yeah, because I had to be editing.
It was basically just like Bridget would text me like 4 a.m. be like, "Can you do like literally when we get off the live show? There's shit I have to do for Bridget for BookTube. So we're just gonna stay in this call." Like, Okay,
Like, hey, Molly, can you find this for me?
yeah, I'm like, I'll be in bed. I'll be like, Bridget, I'm going to bed. And she's like, okay. Like earlier, I was like, Bridget, I'm gonna go take a nap. And she's like, okay. And then as soon as I'm in bed, she's like, actually, can you do this? And can you figure out this? And I'm like,
I'm just like, can you do this eventually? Like, I need this.
Can I sleep first and then do it? Like,
I'm like, yeah, but just like so you know in advance.
That's me with Ravenclaw rules.
I had just gotten into bed last night. It was like 4:30 in the morning. I had just turned out the lights. I had just gotten comfortable, and then I get texted like, "Can you figure out like how many seconds of this song we need?" And I was like, "Can I do it tomorrow?" Like I literally looked down. I was like, "I swear to God, if she expects me to get out of bed right now."
No, I didn't want you to do it then, but I was like, if I don't text you now, I'm gonna forget.
Full disclosure, she texted this after we were in a 5-hour FaceTime where all we were doing was working on this and reading Turtles all the way down. We took breaks in the FaceTime. We're like, okay, let's read, because neither of us had finished the book.
Yep.
So of course, we picked a 500-some page book for next month.
That should be fun reading the last
Start reading it like before the week of the live show.
Yeah.
Yeah, like as of this morning, I had read like 100-some pages. I was like, I need to get on this.
Yeah.
All right, well.
Oh, Jess asked if anyone knows anything about Egypt history.
Of what history?
Egypt?
What does that have to do with anything?
I have no idea.
I mean, like, no, not really. Just like
not really. I mean, what I read in Rick Riordan's book.
What I've seen in like the movie The Pyramid, but I don't think that was very accurate. Like, I saw the Prince cartoon when I was a kid. I know they had slaves and they worshipped cats, and like they took.
That's what I know too, and they have like
the brain
polytheism
thing.
They like mixed up north and south because of the way the river flows. So they thought like the north was lower.
I didn't know that.
They were also like one of the first, like I think they invented makeup basically. Like,
yeah, I think so.
This is for
this is great.
This is the worst history lesson. I'm sorry, there's a Jew on this call. We should really let him.
Yeah, I mean, I only know from the Bible, so.
Which was 100% accurate.
Yes, 100%.
There were 2 creation stories.
Bridget gets so.
My brother told me that like Egypt is as old to was as old to like biblical times as like biblical times are as old to us, or something like that. That's not exactly right. But
Cleopatra was closer to our time than she was to the pyramids.
That's weird.
Wow.
Cleopatra.
Yeah, that's what he told me. Something like that. Is that like Egypt's so old?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just old. The aliens built it, and then they left.
And Stonehenge.
I mean, the pyramids I can see more than Stonehenge. How'd they put those rocks up there?
I know.
That's hard to buy. Like pyramids, you could build a ramp, okay? But like Stonehenge, I don't know why.
That's crazy.
And why are there Stonehenges like all over the place? Like there's not just one stone circle like that. Like, this became a conspiracy show really quick. Let's get off.
Therapy session becomes conspiracy show.
That can be another live show, I think.
The moon landing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Bridget, you want to sign us off?
That's all we have
Stop.
for today. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next month.
And
Reading
watch
Strange the Dreamer. And watch BookTube Rewind.
Yes.